One of Manchester's most infamous gangsters, Paul Doyle, spoke from behind bars in an interview with the Manchester Evening News, MEN, expressing his belief that law enforcement has prevailed over the type of gangland crime that once made him a feared figure. Paul Doyle, a former Salford gangster notorious for his moniker One Punch Doyle, has been released on license after serving half of his 16-year sentence for orchestrating a massive drug distribution operation across the Northwest. Now 64, Doyle has returned to Salford, where he aims to use his freedom to guide young people away from a life of crime, a stark contrast to the lavish lifestyle he led in Altrincham prior to his latest conviction. His arrest, which took place just before the murder of his former associate, Paul Massey, in July 2015, marks a pivotal moment in Manchester's criminal history. Known for his violent past and deep connections within the criminal underworld, Doyle's downfall symbolizes the ongoing fight against organized crime in the region. Born in the late 1950s to a Jewish mother and an Irish father, Doyle grew up as one of 7 children in a family of mixed heritage. By 25, his mother was already raising 7 children, 6 boys and a girl. When his parents separated, Doyle's life took a dramatic turn. He and 2 siblings moved in with their father, while the other 4 stayed with their mother. Life with their father was difficult. In those days, there were no social benefits, and his father worked long hours, even taking side jobs as a bodyguard to provide for them. With their father often away, Doyle's 7-year-old sister had to step in as a caretaker, managing household tasks and looking after the younger siblings. Standing at just 5 feet 8 inches tall, Paul Doyle was often underestimated in the criminal underworld because of his size. That perception changed dramatically one night in the early 1970s at Pip's nightclub in Manchester. When a fight broke out, Doyle was, as usual, right in the thick of it. In rapid succession, he knocked out 5 adversaries, each with a single punch from his tattooed fist. Inked across his knuckles were the letters ACAB, an acronym for All Coppers Are Bastards, though Doyle's fists weren't reserved solely for police officers. Among the crowd that witnessed Doyle's display of violence was another young man making a name for himself in the criminal world, Paul Massey, a contemporary from reform school. Speaking from prison, Doyle candidly discussed his life of crime with the MEN and didn't hold back. Asked about his infamous reputation, Doyle explained, "When I was young, I would pound punch bags for 5 hours a day. I learned how to throw a proper knuckle punch and mastered the art of fighting. People would line up to fight me, thinking I was an easy target. I took them all down. The ones who fell early were the lucky ones." It was from such encounters that Doyle earned his nickname, One Punch Doyle. His criminal career spanned 5 decades and included roles as a gangster, drug dealer, robber, and United hooligan, with much of his life spent in prison. City detectives regarded Doyle as a handy lad from Salford who was not to be trifled with. One officer, after watching CCTV footage of Doyle knocking someone out, remarked, "It was one of the best punches I've ever seen." His reputation also earned him respect and fear from fellow criminals like Paul Massey. Although Doyle and Massey were friends, they became rivals later in their criminal endeavors. Doyle's criminal earnings funded a comfortable life in a leafy suburb of Altrincham, where he raised 11 children in an $800,000 home. His respectable neighbors on Wainwright Road had no idea they were living next to a Salford hardman until police raided his home in 2014. Doyle had purchased the property in 2004, shortly after being released from a 7-year sentence for drug dealing. At that time, he had never worked and was claiming benefits along with his wife. However, between 2012 and 2014, struggling to make the $3,000 a month mortgage payments, Doyle became involved in a series of large-scale drug deals. These deals were eventually exposed through a nationwide police surveillance operation, culminating in the 2014 raid at his home. Doyle has been imprisoned ever since. Doyle and Massey got to know each other well while they were both serving time at Strangeways Prison. Doyle described Massey, "When he came out, that's when he made his name as Mr. Big. He was like a one-man army, attacking the prison officers on his own. Everyone admired his courage. Massey was a gangster to everyone else, but to me, I was often the one doing the fighting for him. He wasn't a big man by any stretch." Doyle added, "People don't realize he wasn't driven by money. It was all about his lads. He even put up his house as collateral to cover the legal fees for Bobby Spears." Bobby Spears was a close associate of Massey, now serving a life sentence for his role in a failed underworld hit at the Brass Handles pub in Salford in March 2006. Spears had paid $10,000 for the hit, but the two would-be assassins were overpowered and shot dead. The CCTV footage from the pub was destroyed, and the killers were never brought to justice. Massey himself was shot dead outside his home in 2015, but Doyle did not attend the funeral as he was incarcerated at the time. Doyle also described himself as a fervent Manchester United hooligan, one of the most notorious members of the Red Army. Reflecting on his violent past, he stated, "When I came out of prison and started having gang warfare with Massey and the Noonans, I surrounded myself with hooligans who were used to fighting with the police and rival hooligans every week. I surrounded myself with them for my own protection, and they became gangsters." Currently, Doyle is serving the remainder of a 16-year sentence at Thorn Cross, an open prison in Warrington. He was sentenced in 2015 for conspiring to flood the north of England with heroin, cocaine, cannabis, and amphetamines worth $300 million. During his sentencing, his barrister noted, "The defendant has nothing left apart from his family. His ruination is complete." Doyle is hoping to be released on license next year. Now 63 and a grandfather, Doyle has been working on a book about his life of crime and has plans to open a gym business upon release. He acknowledges that the police have won the war on organized crime. He has shared excerpts from his book, Surviving the Madness, on a blog where he details some of his criminal exploits and encounters with other underworld figures. The days of brawling with the Quality Street Gang, the Noonans, and Paul Massey's men seem to be over. In his interview from prison, Doyle offered no apologies but provided insights into his life choices and a message to potential future criminals. Reconsider your path. Reflecting on his upbringing, Doyle explained, "I think back to Victorian times and the World Wars. We were basically raised to go over the trenches. I've done a lot of thinking skills courses to distance myself from the violence. I haven't had a fight in 20 years. I didn't want to end up punch drunk, and I didn't need to fight." Doyle, who once weighed as much as 20 stone, is now obsessed with fitness, down to 13.5 stone, with a six-pack, and claims he can perform 3,000 sit-ups in an hour. He says the energy he once put into fighting is now channeled into maintaining his physical health. "At the moment, my wealth is my health. Now all I fight against is to keep my fitness up. People are baffled at my level of fitness," he said. When asked what advice he would give to young criminals today, or even to his younger, more violent self, Doyle responded, "Wake up. They need to learn not to go down the same path as me. You can put that same energy into starting a business and will probably succeed rather than putting it into crime. The police are too clever. You're walking straight into a long prison sentence. That sort of crime has come and gone, and the police have won the war. Drug dealers are getting longer prison sentences than murderers." In reflecting on his life from behind bars, Paul Doyle's story serves as a stark warning about the futility of a life of crime. Once a feared figure in Manchester's underworld, Doyle now sees the gangster lifestyle as a path to ruin, advocating for young people to channel their energy into more constructive pursuits. With his health and fitness now his primary focus, Doyle is a man who has come to terms with his past. He acknowledges that the era of violent gangland crime is over, replaced by a law enforcement system that has decisively won the war. As he looks to his future beyond prison, Doyle hopes to turn his experiences into something positive, proof that even the hardest criminals can change their ways and find new purpose.